As companies grow, founders can no longer be present in every single situation. And by the time a company hits $10 million in revenue, there better be a system in place or there's going to be tremendous drag and loss of revenue. The companies that scale successfully don't just put in systems for sales or operations or fulfillment, but they think about how they're going to communicate with their teams and the people actually doing the work. And if the system is not put in place when you first start building a company, it's going to get a lot more difficult. Think about if you were building a luxury home. You'd put in the plumbing and the electrical as you were building. That's a lot easier than finishing the house and going, you know what, we need some pipes in this thing, and then putting the pipes in. So this video is all about understanding what this system looks like, why it needs to exist, and how you can do it in your company before you get so big that you have to rip apart walls to put the system in place. This is the exact presentation I went through with a founder, all cleaned up and pretty for you. Fortunately, AI makes my chicken scratches nice and pretty as a diagram, because I've been obsessed with understanding how people interact with each other and how meaning is distributed, both as a performer and entertainer, and then of course as we apply it to corporations and companies and businesses. So if you're going to communicate to your team through a communication system, the first thing that you have to understand is that repetition is absolutely crucial. Repeating yourself is a vital part of the process. And I think that when we are in charge of things, or when we're creating things in our own mind, we assume that everybody already understands what we're saying. And so we say it once and expect them to get it. But that's not how life works. I actually coached small college basketball many years ago. And when I wanted to put a new system or a new principle in place for my team, I wouldn't just say it once, hey, team, do this thing, and then expect them to get it. I would repeat it over and over and over. And practices were spent really honing in on the thing that I was trying to implement for the team, because people don't get things the first time you say it, particularly when they're balancing all the other things in their minds. Like the basketball player is thinking about, where do I move my feet? How do I shoot? Where am I supposed to be on the floor? So if I'm putting in a new particular type of process within my offensive system, for example, I have to make sure I repeat it and repeat it. That's why they're called drills. Now, this may feel natural with to-dos, with those things that have to get done. Remember to do this task, but this is actually far deeper than just tasks. It's reminding people repetitively why you exist, why this work's important, where you're going as a company, so that they understand through that repetition who you are as a founder and who the company is at its very core. Second is paying attention to communicating context. We're really good at communicating tasks. This is what you need to do. But as soon as you put that task into a context, people begin to feel at home. And that's what we want them to do. We want them to feel like they understand why this exists. Let's go back to my basketball analogy. If I were wanting my team to play more aggressive defense, I would not just say, we need to play more aggressive defense. I mean, that's a task, and I suppose they might execute it. But if I explain to them, look, this team is weak with the dribble, so we're going to play extremely aggressive defense and get up on the ball, they understand the context and the reason why. People don't just commit to tasks, they commit to understanding. And when they understand where this task sits within their world and within the larger world, it becomes a lot more easy to execute without you micromanaging them. That leads to the third idea, and that it's imperative to connect people to the strategy of your company, to actually let them see that 30,000 foot view of here's where we are and here's where we're going, and these are the objectives. If you're just executing on the ground and you're just involved in tactics every day and don't understand the larger strategy of where this is going, it doesn't build the context, which is point two, and it doesn't help you understand the strategic importance. I think that understanding strategy is probably one of the best natural motivators on the planet, because people don't need you in their corner going, hey, get it done, I believe in you. But if they understand, oh, I am valuable in the strategic outlay of where the company is going, and they see themselves in the context strategically, they're going to be a lot more motivated to get things done, again, without you holding their hand and going, please get this task done. And ultimately, what we want to do is scale meaning. Founders become bottlenecks within the communication processes when everything has to pass through them, when every decision has to pass through them, and the people doing the work don't have a clear set of principles that they are following that supersede or create the environment for what you are wanting them to do. The best founder principles, as they're impressed upon people, allow independent thinking to happen naturally because there's a framework, a structure, a scaffolding for meaning. And it's not just, okay, well, I think this is what I should do. If you're being asked for clarification consistently, it is likely because you have not created a system of principles that people clearly understand and can execute independently. The goal to a communication system is not to provide answers or even necessarily have a conduit to provide answers, but to give the people the principles so that they can have their own judgment. Now, things begin to operate like an organism and not like a machine. When companies operate like a machine, then every cog needs to be connected to the next. And if something breaks, you just replace it. People become disposable. But that makes scaling very, very difficult because machines have to be taken apart and put back together. But if it's an organism where a cell is self-governing, where it has the DNA of the company embedded within it, it now can build with other cells and naturally grow like a great big oak tree. That's a lot better way to build companies than trying to manufacture machines. If you want to build a better machine, my videos aren't for you. If you want to think about how things can grow organically and have the DNA of what you're creating built throughout the organization, that's what this is about. It's been said that the purpose of leadership is to raise up other leaders. And nothing could be more true than when you're dealing with your leaders within an organization and your managers. Once you scale beyond 12 people in an organization, you can no longer be the touch point for every person, which means you're going to have managers and leaders and directors. And these people need to take in your DNA and your company's DNA, the context and the why for why you exist, and be able to articulate it for themselves and then communicate it clearly to everybody else. Managers either create alignment or they enhance distortion. And that distortion happens when you have not spent the time to properly imprint the story of your company onto those managers. Literally, they have to understand the narrative, the story, the why, the thing behind the great organism that you're growing. They have to understand it so that it's deep within them, and that allows them to transfer on that DNA to the other cells as they onboard into your systems. A great test for this is asking yourself, is my managers multiplying my message or mutating it? If you find out that the people on the ground doing the work have a different version of why you're doing what you're doing and what's important than what you have, that means that you have not correctly input into your managers. If you hear nothing else I say about the system you put in place, if you just spend more time with your direct reports, with those managers, with those directors, impressing upon them the DNA of who you are as a founder and your company DNA, if you just do that, you're going to see exponential results on the other end. And the sixth thing is you have to measure alignment. You've got to actually have some processes for measuring whether this is working or not. Listen, we measure our churn, we measure our onboarding, we measure sales percentages. We're measuring everything else, but we're not measuring whether our people understand why they're here and why this work matters. I've developed a whole diagnostic system for this, but you can do it kind of in a grassroots bare bones method of just spot checking and asking people in the organization what they think about different things. Like, why is this currently a priority, for example? Why do we exist? What do you think our number one priority is? Those types of contextual questions about who you are and where you're going will give you a snapshot into where the thoughts are within the organization, and that'll let you know whether you need to strengthen a particular line of communication or not. A key idea that I think you might like is alignment isn't what's said, it's what's survived. You could say a million things in a meeting, but what do people actually take out and execute? That's what you need to be asking about and seeing if the core things, the things that are most important to you, are actually getting to the people that are executing them. Because if they are, then you know that your DNA is being transferred and the tasks are going to be done in the way that you want them to be done. Ultimately, number 7, you need a system for meaning, for communicating meaning. Listen, we've got systems for everything else, for the tasks, projects, meetings, accountability. We've got our internal Slack systems and our boards and our project management tools that are explaining the to-dos, but most companies don't have a system that communicate meaning. They don't communicate why. They don't communicate the humanity and the human stories behind the work we're doing. This is actually the antithesis of AI. AI is all about doing things more efficiently with less, doing it with machines and getting people out of it. But even if you're an AI company heavily reliant upon tools, you still have human beings overseeing them and prompting them and engineering them. And those human beings need to have a system for meaning, or they're going to become disconnected to the work and they're going to become inefficient, and you're going to have all kinds of organizational drag like we talked about at the beginning. So discovering communication channels that connect to your people in a way that they can hear it is the real task. And this is a brand new horizon. There's not a lot of people thinking about this. I think I'm on the cutting edge of this, but this is a Moneyball moment. If you remember the movie Moneyball, they came across understanding a particular metric, and that metric changed everything for baseball. This is the thing that could change everything for scaling companies, because companies expect meaning to be transferred in every meeting, in every communication. It's just kind of always there. But what happens is it falls to the bottom of the pile and doesn't happen at all, because what you're most concerned about is the task of the moment. We fall to the tyranny of the urgent. So what I am suggesting here is being intentional about how you communicate meetings to people. Is that a weekly meeting that you're bringing everybody on board, not about tasks, just about who we are and why it matters? Do you have a particular messaging system that would just carry meaning and not anything else? And that's really the point, is that meaning needs its own dedicated channel. It's like a plumbing system. Plumbing is for water. It doesn't carry gas on top of it and electricity. We're expecting one kind of piping system to carry everything within the structures of our businesses. And it doesn't work that way. You have to build a system and infrastructure for meaning. Like, here's an idea, and I've got several of these ideas, and I think they really are company dependent, but what if you had an internal podcast? It's a simple 2 or 3 minute podcast that goes out weekly that talks to different people or customers within the organization. And it's required listening, that people could take 3 to 5 minutes on a Wednesday morning and listen to this podcast and be brought up to speed about who we are and where we're going. And now when you go out and measure it and check for alignment, you're asking questions that you mentioned in the podcast, which encourages people to ingest it. If you want further growth, if you want to scale without operational drag and feeling like you're always pushing people up the mountain instead of having them pick up their pack and go, I know where we're going, you need a system for meaning. The companies that scale aren't the ones with the smartest people. They're the ones who understand where they're going. They understand the mission. Information tells them what to do. Meaning tells them why. If you want to get a little bit deeper into the system and why it's costing founders 6 figures, I'll post this video here next for a little bit deeper of a dive.